Teachers are being put under an impossible situation with working with large groups in the way that they're required, because how can they understand each individual?
The education that we give to students, whilst it's a very good education, does not enable them to take charge of their own learning. It's all very much teacher-led, and therefore you get motivational problems with students because it's something that is done to them rather than something done by them.
I can remember one guy as an IT manager who'd got straight A's at school, gone to Oxford, got a first, an MBA, got a distinction, and was finding life a problem. I remember breaking down in tears at one point in a group saying, you know, I've done all these things that I'm supposed to do by the world, and I'm unhappy, I'm a failure at work, I'm not a good manager. You know, why is this so? You know, why weren't people helping him to think about what is needed to be able to lead a good life? And it isn't just about qualification.
You have to break it down into small, human-scale units in which people are known, honoured and cared for, and it's within those conditions that we can begin to make real choices about our learning and our lives. Well, here we are in this lovely new building, an arts block, and that's pertinent to what we're discussing today and the work that's going on in the school, because the arts are essentially about making meaning. They're actually different ways in which human beings try to make sense of their lives together in very creative ways. And the initiative that's going on in this school and in a sister school not far away is precisely about how young people not only make choices about their learning, but actually make meaning out of their lives.
Yeah, you should get talked at rather than...
Yeah, people actually listen to you.
It's just being able to say what you want and being actually asked about what you want to learn rather than being told what they think you should learn.
Within our curriculum, you don't really get a chance where you just get to sit down and talk about yourself and to hear what others are doing.
It was good because we got like a chance for everyone to give their input to you to help you.
From one person looking at a problem or a situation, they might not be able to see the easiest solution, and with just someone else's input into it, you can have a different frame of mind.
It helped me think about my future a lot more. You definitely start to think outside of school.
Person-centred education is what we're about here. We focus on what it is to be a person, because I think one of the things that's happened in the last 15 years or so is that we've forgotten about education and we've become obsessed with schooling. So this is a way in which young people are working together with adults in quite a different way to the ones that we're used to in the normal system.
The Self-Managed Learning Project is working with small groups of students. We get these students to have a look at their learning experiences in the past. If we start with you, Lauren, what do you think is important?
Commitment.
And how they feel about themselves and their learning at the moment in order for them to pursue their learning in the future.
You have a facilitator within your group. There was like one sort of per 6 of us, and he got to know us over the few months.
We used to meet, I think, once every 3 weeks, and we'd spend an hour in form time, and then part of our next lesson, and it would be us getting together and discussing in groups our main aims for the future and that kind of thing.
The starting point is very much how do we start with the person and help them to learn what they want to learn. We ask that students do 2 things. One is write a learning agreement which sets down their goals and the ways in which they want to achieve it, and that they join a group and learn to work with colleagues and support them in their own learning. The students' learning agreement is an important document. We ask the students to think about 5 questions. Where have I been? What's been my past experience? Where am I now? What kind of person am I? What abilities I have? Therefore, what kind of goals can I set that build on those? How will I achieve those goals? And how will I know if I've got to where I wanted to get to? How will I measure it? And we're quite tough on that notion they should measure. So we're not against assessment, but we think the best assessment is self-assessment.
So would it be helpful to work through a few questions now?
They set their targets, whereas in the classroom, the teachers are setting targets.
They're setting goals and they're looking at ways of achieving those goals, sometimes by breaking them down into small, manageable steps. So how are you doing that?
Just like doing it in front of my mum all the time, and that's what I'm doing.
They might wish to have better friendships with other people. That might be something they need to be working on. Their other goals may be sporty.
What qualifications do you have to be a coach?
Or just to be able to do something which they are able to see the goal.
Right, so the first thing to do was for you to, Will, to talk about your experience.
I've talked about a few things. I think rugby, because I've been doing quite a lot of rugby, and I said that was one of my goals, to be better at rugby. But I think to do with films is probably the biggest one that I've put forward. I did enjoy the day, and I learnt quite a lot about all of the technical stuff, like special lenses.
We do insist on there being ground rules about listening to each other, about, whatever they decide on.
There's a secrecy rule that we weren't allowed to say each other's goals and things outside of the group. It's good because it doesn't stop you from saying kind of personal things that you feel it's all tightly and close.
The fact that it is about small groups rather than it being in a classroom situation means that it allows people to talk about issues that wouldn't naturally come up and emerge in a classroom situation, because part of the structure and part of the organisation of a group is the confidentiality issue.
In the meetings themselves, there was a very clear structure about giving each person time to talk, and that everybody else should listen. Now, initially they find that difficult because they're not used to listening to each other. So there is a very clear structure to the process. It's not a free-for-all.
You have to abide by the rules, or otherwise it just doesn't work. It's informal.
What, on a Thursday afternoon?
But you have to be quite formal in the way that you act.
Yeah.
I think there's a number of principles that underpin this approach. The first principle is the principle of freedom. The young person herself identifies, in conjunction with others, the learning that matters to her. So she initiates it.
Right, if you think, Lauren, what's going to be the most useful thing to you?
Lauren would like to be a professional netball player.
Is it going to be useful to work on the questions, Mrs. Shipley?
So she needs to be seeking ways to get to that. Other people in the group are supporting her with that, with giving ideas on how she could find information out.
Can you think of any questions that Lauren could ask about that would be useful for asking Mrs. Shipley?
Like, how do you get into coaching?
How do you get into it? What about that, Lauren? Would that be useful?
Yeah.